Good morning and welcome to this webinar hosted by myself, Nick from Capium, and Robert from Initor Global. And today we're going to be looking at is pricing and engagement management stifling your practice's growth and its ability to be profitable. So I'll start again. On this webinar with me today is Robert Grant. Robert, would you like to give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, just quickly, Nick, thanks for opening the webinar. I'm Robert Grant, Head of Customer Experience at Initor Global. I'm based in the UK. I have a long experience in accounting practice, and I'm now helping accountants across the UK with their outsourcing needs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. So we'll just give it a few more moments just to see if any other attendees would like to join. But just to give you a few rules about this webinar, really, and please ask any questions or share any comments or feedback that you have in the chat. I will be asking questions directly to Robert. Okay, so please put in this message where you're watching and listening from, and really what you're looking to get out of the webinar. I think that'll be really great to see and hear. Furthermore, this webinar is being recorded. Okay, so you'll be able to watch it at a later stage if something drags you away, or like me, the dog barks and you've got to answer the door. So don't worry, don't stress. Recordings will be shared afterwards. Okay, so I think we should get started, Robert. Please, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So once again, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. The subject matter today is the tricky area of pricing and engagement management for accountants. Throughout the presentation, I'll give you some helps, some tips, some suggestions about how Initor Global, as an outsourcing provider, can help you with those tricky areas. We will be joined in due course by Cheyne Lukas. He's the Managing Director of AVN. For those of you who don't know Cheyne or AVN, I strongly recommend you check out their website and Cheyne's profile and bio. Cheyne has been inspiring accountants to build their skill sets and their practices for many years now. And his Thursday webinars are a great way to connect with other accountants. So Cheyne will join us in due course. We also have 3 audience polls to run today. We'll stop for a few moments during the course of the webinar, take stock of any responses from you guys and reflect on the feedback. Feel free to add any questions for Cheyne and myself in the questions box. Nick will manage the flow of questions and we'll stop periodically to have a look at those. So here's the scope of our webinar. It's in 2 parts. The areas are connected, of course. We'll talk a little bit about what makes pricing engagement so challenging, some suggestions about pricing models that are available and the characteristics of each of those models. We'll talk about the pros and cons as well, and which model is best for your practice. And as I said in my opening remarks, we'll also suggest how Initor Global can help find the right model for your practice. And this is based on feedback from our customers. Part 2, very much around engagement management. We'll talk about the basics of issuing an engagement letter for a new client or an assignment, how to keep the terms of engagement under review to make sure that engagement management is effective, some warning signs that engagements may be experiencing what we know as scope creep, how to address the tricky area of agreeing additional fees with your clients. In the event you have a dispute with a client, how to manage liabilities through that process. We'll talk about the sort of final stage in the process of disengaging a client if you need to, and then we'll round that out with how Initor Global can help your practice manage engagements effectively. So if we start from the top, what makes pricing engagement so challenging? So really talking a little bit about the accountant's professional responsibilities and their desire to run an effective business. These are often competing priorities for an accountant. We're all professionals. We're bound by published professional and ethical standards. but we're also there to help clients and improve their businesses as well. We're held to professional standards by regulators, and our clients, of course, also hold us to account to deliver the services that we promise. These characteristics of a profession can often lead to conflict and when we're trying to run a successful business and balance that with our professional responsibilities. We're on the one hand trying to achieve profit, but on the other, trying to help clients. Pricing can often be difficult through that maze when we try to balance these conflicting challenges. We often have diverse client portfolios, and these require different skills and expertise to deliver among our accountants. So if you have a varied client base with different professional requirements, finding the right pricing strategy to balance these needs of clients and the resources you have available to provide those services can be difficult. And setting prices in that environment can also be difficult as well. And we also have the pace of regulatory and technological change. We need to respond appropriately and quickly to any professional, governmental or technological changes and how those impact our clients. And often we have to make that difficult decision of whether to absorb any additional resources to deliver those changes with the need to discuss any adjustment to fees with clients. That can often lead to conflict. And if we even look at some recent developments around MTD, the changes in accounting standards, financial reporting standards as well have changed, and also new reforms such as the basis period changes, we need to think carefully about how we weave that into our pricing strategies. On a more positive note, technological changes can lead to efficiencies and also opportunities to reduce the time spent on recurring tasks or compliance tasks. And that allows you scope to maybe reduce your prices, to target different markets, or to become more efficient and achieve better margins. We all know the risk around increased competition, especially in certain sectors of our industry, and how we deal with that in terms of adjusting prices can also be a challenge. Some of you operating in the specific parts of our market will see sometimes a downward price spiral with competitors permanently offering discounts, and how you respond to that can be difficult and make pricing challenging. And of course, there are client expectations that we need to deliver on. Social media is extending every day, and obviously a negative client review, especially around pricing, can be difficult to claw back. So that makes our pricing discussions ever more difficult. I also bring in some of the legacies around the pandemic. We know that some experienced accountants have left the industry, leaving a skills gap. And we also know that client demands are increasing because of the help and support that we provided, often at no or little cost throughout the pandemic. So we need to deal with that legacy as well. And of course, the final area is around client portability. It is really easy now for a client to pick up his records and go to another accountant, maybe offering a discount or a better price for a short period of time. So the ease of data transfer is making it almost impossible at times to keep your pricing strategies up to date with your client needs. So I think I'd like to pause now and bring in my colleague Mimi to run the first audience poll. So Mimi, if you could help with this, the questions are around what's the biggest drag on your profitability? Is it service prices? Is it the client numbers you have? Is it the human resources you have to deliver? Or indeed any increasing overhead? So what do you see as the biggest drag on your profitability? So Nick, if you've got any comments at this stage, this is a good time to bring them in.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I think what really makes pricing really tough is that we should maybe see pricing as a living organism that constantly evolves. And I think as soon as you think you've got your pricings right, so many factors could change that could influence it. So I think, you should maybe get into your minds that pricing is a topic or an area that you should revisit each year and constantly review and take in regards the variety of factors that could affect it, really. Linking to the question about what is the biggest drag on your profitability is, pricing is so key to getting your profits. And what kind of profits do you want? How big are those margins? And these are all key kind of questions that I think you need to be asking yourself. So yeah, that's just my initial observations, really. And I think you're going to be tackling some of those ever-present challenges of pricing and what structures you can put in place to help a practice, really. You know, and I think it's really important as well to think and reflect upon that maybe what pricing structure is suitable for you for your first 50 clients might not be the right pricing structure for your next 50 clients. So I think really bear that in mind, what pricing structure you're going to implement for in which stage of the business your business is at.
Good. Yeah, helpful comments there, Nick. Mimi, is the poll now closed?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, let's have a look. Can you tell us what the key messages are?
So we have 40% for service prices.
Yeah.
Client numbers 20%. Human resources is 20%, and overhead is 20%.
Okay, excellent. So there's obviously a heavy skew towards getting the right price strategy for your practice. So we'll go on now and talk about some of the pricing models which are available, and theoretically we've been comfortable with over the years. The pricing models that certainly I've used throughout my career are around fixed price, value pricing increasingly is being used where the circumstances are right. Subscription based. Some of my background over the last 7 years was working for an online cloud accounting firm, and we were heavily using subscription to smooth income from our clients, but also to fix the services that we provided. There's a more traditional approach around hourly or ad hoc rates, very heavily timesheet driven, which many accountants still use to this day. And also the contingent fee approach, which is really designed where you have, some specific skills that depend on a specific outcome for your clients. It's fair to say all of these have pros and cons, depending on, the type of model that you implement, and many have characteristics to support your clients and your practice. So it's important to be flexible throughout those different models. If we pick up the fixed price model, as it suggests in its price, it's a flat rate per hour based on the type of service. Importantly, from the outset, you really need to understand the cost of your internal resources and the profit margin that you're desiring. And Nick alluded to that in some of his comments as well. One important fact we often overlook is that no accountant bills 100% of the time. And this will often depend on their seniority, their experiences within your practice. In my experience, between 800 hours and 1,200 hours each year is normal, based on the skills and experience and other non-chargeable responsibilities an accountant may have. So to calculate that fixed fee, the accountant will need to understand the direct and indirect cost of employment, the target profit margin, and the nature of the assignment and the fit of clients with your practice strategy. I'm going to give you a very simple example of a newly qualified accountant, typically earning around £40,000, and with chargeable hours at the higher end of the scale, around 1,200. So you would just pick up those direct employment costs. You would add on your indirect employment costs, any benefits you offer to your staff, cost of pension, national insurance, that sort of thing. And then you get your total costs. Typically, we would love a profit margin of around 40%. That certainly delivers a healthy outcome for a practice. But then you can see how your total costs or charge out rate starts to increase to around £70,000. And then simply divide that by your chargeable hours. You determine a fee per hour for the use of your accountant of about 58, rounded to either 55 or £60. So you can see how that all comes together in a reasonable rate that covers your costs from the outset and achieves the desired profit margin. There are, of course, pros and cons within any model. In terms of the fixed fee model, running through the pros, quoting for work is really straightforward. Once you understand your cost base, the services to be provided, you work out a very straightforward fee. Clients like this approach. The fee's fixed. They can understand it quite easily. They can budget for it. They know when fees are due. And importantly, where outsourcing can help, there is scope to improve profit margins through investment in technology and improve processes around real-time reporting, bank feeds, data capture software, for instance. Those are all parts that you can outsource to a provider like Initor Global. And we can also provide significant reductions in employment costs and overheads. Typically, cost of outsourcing about 50% less than a UK resource, and often we can improve your turnaround times for work as well, thereby justifying any fee discussions you have with your clients around the quality of service you deliver. In terms of the downside of the fixed fee model, clearly the risk of completing the assignment within the planned hours lies with the accountant. Cost overruns may require a renegotiation of the fee, and this can lead to often difficult conversations with your client. And tracking the progress of assignments is essential. So you need to invest some resource in a time recording or a CRM system that allows you to, at the flick of a button, understand where each assignment is in your pipeline. And different rates may be required for different client types. For instance, if you have clients in the charitable sector, you may be looking to shave a bit off your fees just to make sure that you're more attractive and you can support that sector, or versus the private sector or new loss-leading income streams that you're looking to achieve. So you may need to adjust your rates by a discount or your profit margin expectations just to enter into those markets that you're looking to make an impact in. So bringing all that together, what you need to make this model effective is prepare clear terms of reference through the engagement letters that you agree with clients, and have effective communication throughout the assignment. This is essential to the success of the fixed fee model. And don't forget to add other client-specific costs to your charge-out costs. This is such as use of accounting software, and make sure that is part of the fixed amount. So I'll stop now for another audience poll, and I think this is an important one. Over the last 12 months, how much have you increased your fees by? We've seen many of the pressures facing accountants at the moment, but it'd be really interesting to see the scope or scale of price increases from those of you who've decided that an increase isn't needed or you can't force an increase, to those of you that have managed to increase by levels, upwards of 20%. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment or two to provide some feedback, then that would be great. And then we can have a look at the feedback from you. So over to you, Mimi, to open the poll.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. So the other day I was having a conversation with an accountant, and he was saying that there's two ways of how you deal with your clients, or how you do pricing. One is the kind of the high volume approach. So you have a high number of clients and you're really just churning out accounts or self-assessment returns. And the other one is you have a lower volume of clients, but you spend more quality time with them and doing more advisory work. Which pricing model would you say is best for high client numbers, and which one's best for low client numbers, but more quality compliance work from your side?
Yeah, we'll come on to the different models that suit different sort of client types, but certainly if you've got high volume, similar clients, similar in scope in terms of the accounting services they need, then you can follow the subscription-based model quite easily. When I get into my detail around that, I'll explain the framework that you need to deliver that model successfully. But we see many accountants now who want to spend more time with their clients, see advisory services as the way to grow their practice really quickly and add value to everything they do. Those would be more suited to the sort of value pricing approach, where you understand your client and the value that you can add to their business, and clients are comfortable paying a fee that reflects that service.
No, great. And we've got a comment about the fixed pricing model that one of our attendees implements, and he just says some of the negatives of the fixed model is that often you work more than what you earn or what you bill your client. And then actually having a review of the fees of the client is really difficult. And maybe you should think about, which Robert is going to showcase shortly, I believe, is the value-based pricing, where you communicate often the value you keep adding to that business, almost being a in-house financial director, So that's just some thoughts that I could share.
And this comes back to almost my opening remarks about that dilemma between, we are professionals, we're bound by standards, regulations, we have to deliver, a quality service that passes all those expectations, but we're also a business operation. So you need to find, the middle ground with that, and a pricing strategy that enables you to fulfill all of your professional obligations, deliver a quality service to clients, but also make the margin that you're looking for. And I'll pick up some themes through each of the various models as we go along that might help you with that.
And there's been another comment shared by Shazad, and he just said, due to the intense competition, we are pushed to offer fees at the level occasionally lower than the competition. And I just think it's just a dangerous game to play, because all you're doing is having a race to the bottom. And really what you're kind of communicating to your clients is that you don't really value your work. And as such, you'll keep on devaluing your own proposition. So it's a really tough, it's a slippery slope. But we are joined by Cheyne. Good morning, Cheyne. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And actually, I came in just to hear you read out that comment. And Shazad, if I can just say, this morning, I had to nip out, which is why I'm late here. But this morning, I was on the phone to an accountant who charges no less than £350 per hour. He's still timesheet based, which I'm not a great fan of, but he's happy with that. And look, what he finds is that he just says to people, if you want to pay cheap, you go to the competition. But if you want to get some proper value here, then you come to me. And he doesn't lose his clients. So forgive me, I don't know what led to that particular comment in there, but I just wanted to say I've literally just spoke to somebody who doesn't have any problem winning the work whatsoever, and he charges very high fees off the back of that. So, value yourself and actually believe in yourself would be my comment on there. Sorry to dive straight in there, but hello.
No, but I think you raised some good points, Cheyne. Yeah. But with that accountant, is he very successful in getting his value proposition over to his clients?
Yes, that's absolutely paramount. Of course, you've got to demonstrate the value. You've got to sell the value, as opposed to being seen as a commodity.
Excellent. So let's hear from our audience how they managed to increase prices over the last 12 months. Mimi, is there any sort of pattern to the responses?
Answer number C is dominating at 40%, which is 6 to 10% increase.
Okay.
Second is 5%, up to 5% increase. No increase is 10%.
Wow. Okay.
And more than 20%, we got 20% answer rate.
So that's interesting. Most have plumped always right in the middle for a 6 to 10% increase. But for those guys who haven't increased prices, if you feel you want to offer a comment in the box about why you felt that was right, great to hear from you. But let's move on now and talk about the value pricing that Cheyne suggested was something a client of his or a connection of his was talking about today. So value pricing at its simplest form is you calculate the fee based on the value of the assignment or the package of services to an individual client. The fees are usually fixed and the scope of the service will be carefully defined. From the outset, you need to consider the specific characteristics of each assignment and the needs of each client before you agree the fee. And that may involve some initial investment in understanding the client, your client needs, and the assignment outcomes expected. And that investment may have to come from your more senior members of the practice. It's especially suitable for assignments where you have unique skills or timing may be needed to deliver. So tax and advisory services in particular are very much suited to the value pricing model. Now, of course, there are pros and cons within any model, but the pros for this, and I think Cheyne touched on this really nicely, is it does reflect the value of the accountancy services to an individual client. The scope for accountants to develop new skills, increase the network of clients and industries they work with, building presence, reputation and expertise in new markets, can all be supported using the value pricing approach, because you will quickly build a reputation in the markets, providing quality work. Clients like the model to be applied to complex or time-constrained projects where they don't mind paying that premium for the work. It's also good for cash flow management because the fee is fixed and monitoring is made easier for both the client and the accountant. Now, of course, on the downside is understanding the scope of the assignment from the outset and the outcomes expected can be challenging, especially when your knowledge about a client or a new client is limited. So pitching the fee at the right level can be a bit of a challenge. As I mentioned, it also requires investment from senior professionals to ensure the scope of work and the services is clearly defined and then delivered. And clients expect measurable results, improving their own financial or operational performance. So there's a lot to play for with the value pricing model on both sides. It's often time-bound, meaning delivering an assignment may involve intense periods of working long, unsocial hours, and committing significant resources to achieve an outcome. And there's always the risk of scope creep. So bringing all that together, the value pricing model is suitable for assignments where unique skills may be needed to deliver, advisory, specialist tax advice, for instance, and the price is based on the value to the client, not the time charged by the accountant. So that's the value pricing model. We had a query about the subscription-based model. I'll run through that now.
Robert?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
Sorry to interject here.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, if I'm an accountant and I'm watching this webinar today, and I struggle to communicate my value to my clients, and as such, the pricing discussions are difficult. I'm just wondering if there's any tips or just quick takeaways yourself or Cheyne could share to the audience that how you could communicate that value to the client, and just be like, look, I don't know, how would you tackle that? What would be the first step? Because I can imagine that could be quite a difficult and frightening conversation to have, especially if you've not done it before.
Yeah. Cheyne, over to you. Yeah. You're on mute. You're on mute, Cheyne.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Cheers.
I muted myself as I poured my coffee. I didn't want it to sound like I was doing something else in the office.
Excellent.
Yeah, look, I think what's really important is to have a conversation. Value is in the eyes of the beholder, isn't it, at the end of the day? It doesn't matter how valuable you believe yourself to be, and that is obviously very important, but it's how do you find what's going to resonate with your client? And the best way to do that is to find out to have a conversation, take a genuine interest, find out what their frustrations are, find out what they want to get out of their business, find out what their pains are and what the potential gains are. And then what you need to do is connect what you do to that. There are lots of ways. In fact, I know I've got a few minutes a little bit later on after this presentation to run through something myself, and I was actually going to talk on this a little bit there myself as well, in terms of ways that you can add more value to what you do. But really, it's if you think about what are the things that people value nowadays, the most common right now, we seem to be the age of convenience. Okay, the more convenient we can make it for somebody, the more they will be willing to pay. We've got Amazon. How convenient is it right now for us to click on something, order it, and it's arrived either the same day or the day after? We've become accustomed to convenience. So the less convenient something is, the more people find that frustrating. So think about what's convenient for them. And as I say, really, it's about having those conversations just to find out what's important to them. You will find commonalities, not worrying about if I phone you up, am I going to get a surprise bill for that? is something that they will value. Having an expectation as to what is and isn't included is also something that they'll value.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to bring those sort of softer, sort of less hard-edged compliance aspects to your work. Produce a set of accounts for a client and say, look, I've had an analysis of what we've done for you. Here are some suggestions, based on my experience about the direction of travel for your business. Is there anything else we can help you with? So really, my advice would be sort of lift your head, above the recurring tasks, the day-to-day grind, and really get to know your clients in the direction that their business is heading in.
So kind of moving away from the sausage factory approach of high client numbers, but more maybe having a smaller client portfolio, but then actually building long-lasting and meaningful relationships.
Yeah, and clients love talking about their businesses, and it's important that we listen. That's how we learn.
Definitely.
Okay, quick run through the subscription-based model. It's a model very sort of close to my experience. As I said, I was involved in an online accounting practice. We had over 12,000 clients, serviced them with around 50 accountants and other professionals. So we were very heavily into the subscription-based model. And this is supported by advances in cloud-based accounting. You don't really need to meet your clients at all. And the option for businesses and clients to self-serve their bookkeeping, their accounting, and that provides real scope for this model. So you don't have to do some of the tasks that you would normally expect an accountant to do. It's popular among accountants with high numbers of similar clients, owner-managed businesses, freelancers, contractors, that sort of thing, who are within sort of similar scope of accounting standards. Usually small businesses, FRS 105 scope. It's ideal for this sort of model. Helpfully, accountants can bundle their services into fixed monthly subscriptions, which require clear terms of reference. So some of your clients may need bookkeeping, some may not. VAT returns, some of your clients may be registered, some may not. Year-end accounts can be very simple, straightforward to produce, and tax filing as well. So it's important that your subscription model takes account of those sorts of nuances that each of your clients need. And a lot of that is achieved through them just providing information from the outset that allows you to slot them into the right subscription. And really is suitable for clients you've had for a long time who want guaranteed services each month, and accountants who want a consistent monthly income. It also means clients can spread costs evenly throughout the year, so it's beneficial to their cash flow as well. And there's also scope for additional fees when a client needs more service, for instance, that additional hour of bookkeeping or any advice or any tax returns they need doing, for directors for self-assessment at the end of each tax year. Of course, it comes with pros and cons. As I've mentioned, a strong pro in this model is the fixed income stream and stable resources that an accountant has to deliver each month. Clients can self-serve the subscription and the services that they need. And you also have an opportunity to upsell services, throughout the relationship you have with your client. And I would say outsourcing work can provide significant reductions in costs for those recurring tasks, typically less than 50% of a UK resource. And we can also help you deal with peaks of work, such as the self-assessment tax return season as well. The cons, the risk of completing the assignment, similar to the fixed fee model, lies completely with the accountant. And it can also be difficult to shift clients to higher subscriptions where this is justified. For instance, where their business is growing, they've got higher numbers of transactions, and they require more bookkeeping, or they move from non-registered to registered for VAT. So it can be difficult to move clients around your subscriptions. It also lacks a bit of flexibility where your clients are growing and they need more specialised services, or if they grow to require services or accounting standards under FRS 102, for instance. So you have higher churn rates. Clients in this model tend to be extremely price sensitive and are happy to move on to the next discounted deal. So client retention, client churn, our specific challenges within this model. Bringing it all together, what you need to make a success of this model, you need the upfront investment in automation, technology, and system processing. It's not always suitable for a new client where their needs are unclear, so you may need to invest some time in understanding that and slotting them into the right subscription. The skill mix of accountants and other professions needs to be right. For instance, you may need payroll expertise at certain times in the month, or you may need tax advice if a client needs that. It can be high volume at peak times. Certainly, we used to deal with 5,000 or 6,000 self-assessment tax returns over 3 or 4 month period, and many clients with the same year end will require accounts at the same time, so that can be difficult to manage when you have high volumes. And as I said from the outset, the scope of the service needs to be defined. I could bring in Cheyne again if you've got any comments about subscription models and whether you're seeing more of that in the industry at the moment, or we could move on to the next area if you like.
Yeah, I mean, agree with what you said there. I mean, we generally do get people to get all their clients onto a monthly direct debit, paying a subscription anyway, just because, as you say, it helps with cash flow, and it saves getting that big bill at the end of the year for them. But otherwise, yeah, pretty much agree with what you said.
Yeah, excellent. The hourly billing, it's very still very common, among accountants. It's one of the simplest models to use. You set your hourly rates, you track the time, you charge your clients based on the number of hours you charge. All the work is chargeable and timesheet driven. Can create some problems with clients where bills vary significantly each month, but they should expect that, if they're commissioning services from you. In a sort of a normal annual cycle. It doesn't consider the value of services to clients or distinguish between the type of service. So that's an important consideration in this. Very simple to implement. All the work is charged for, and outsourcing work can help you manage peaks of work or where you've got short-term resource issues. And we can help improve turnaround times as well. Cons on this service, clients won't know month to month what they expect to spend on services, though good communication can overcome this. Can create tensions with clients who receive an unexpected bill, so there needs to be regular communication around this, and as I said, it doesn't reflect the value of a service to a client. So hourly billing, ad hoc rate, still used from time to time, but increasingly people are using other models. Now, I'll talk about the contingent fee model. Now, this is calculated based on an agreed outcome or an event resulting from an accountant's work. There are strict ethical rules covering, contingent fees, especially if you carry out an audit for a client or you're helping them, achieve a loan application or something like that. So you need to be careful about avoiding conflict of interest here. It's suitable where there are specific conditions for an individual client. They're looking to spread risk and the cost of an assignment with an uncertain outcome. The contingent fee is only paid when the agreed outcome has been achieved, and there can be a significant time lag between completing the assignment and the outcome being secured. Positively, you can secure significant margins using a very rich skill mix in this contingent fee model. But of course, there is a risk if the agreed outcome isn't achieved, the client doesn't have to pay anything. So that's a little bit about the contingent fee. So how do you choose the suitable pricing model for your practice? Well, first of all, determine a pricing strategy based on the type of clients and assignments that you need to deliver. The model needs to support delivery of your practice growth strategy and your annual business plan. So those strategies must complement each other. You need to understand the cost of delivering services, cost of employment, overhead, software, etc., and the margin of profit that you're seeking. You have to have a CRM system that's sufficient to track progress of assignments and accountants' work. And of course, time recording systems can underpin these models to track the number of hours that your accountants are billing individually. Also, market test your pricing with close competitors There's a lot of information in the public domain now about monthly subscription fees that competitors charge, special offers, discounts, that sort of thing. So have a look at your pricing and test it with those competitors. And also understanding your client and their business needs is essential when determining any pricing model. So I'll just summarise all this, and then I'll bring in Cheyne just to maybe wrap up this part of the presentation. Fixed price, easy to implement once costs and margins are understood. I think it meets the needs of newer practices seeking to grow their presence, and you can loss lead if you need to. The value price, suitable for more complex work, advisory services, that sort of thing, requires careful scoping and maybe investment from senior professionals to secure assignments. High risk of scope creep, of course. It does suit practices with that niche offering, tax, advisory, or they have highly sought after skills. The subscription model we talked around, it's very suitable for high volume, similar scope clients, and you have opportunity to upsell services as well and increase those margins, but it can be inflexible where clients require more complex services or outgrow this model. Benefits practices with high degrees of automation, high volumes and similar client types, small businesses, sole traders, that sort of thing. It is a highly competitive model and price sensitive among clients. The hourly ad hoc rate, very familiar with that. Simple, suitable for clients and clients comfortable with peaks and troughs of work and variable fees. And we just talked about the contingent fee. Scope for very high margins based on your expertise. And it suits the more mature practices with established track records and complex high margin clients. So Nick, do we have any more questions from our audience, or Cheyne, did you want to offer some closing remarks on this part of the presentation?
None have come in, but I have one.
Yeah.
If your main concern as an accountant is to ensure your prices increase, which pricing model do you suggest? And also monthly or annual payments, which is the best way to kind of make it appear the price increase feel less damaging to your client's pocket? So I just open that out to the forum, really. So which is the best method you think that can allow you to communicate price increases, or to you, Robert and Cheyne, and which kind of method of collecting payments really as well?
Cheyne, I don't mind if you have the first crack at this, but
look, so first of all, I always recommend monthly payments just because it helps from a cash flow point of view, from both the accountant's and the business owner's point of view. So I would always recommend that, unless it's like an annual tax return or something like that, but for the most part, that. In terms of the fee, I also say, and one of the things we help AVM members that we work with put in place is that actually what they do is they collect the payment over a 10-month period, not 12. And the reason for the 10-month is it forces you, the accountant, to sit back down with the client again and review for next year what their needs are. Because when it's just on a monthly or just an annual thing, you just continue doing the same thing year after year after year for them. But their circumstances, wants and needs will have changed. And by forcing yourself to sit down after that 10-month to review the next year, you can quote a different fee, you can do another wants and needs analysis with them as well, and just recognize that things have changed in their business. And one final thing I'll just mention on that as well is that I noticed that you'd said about scope creep in value pricing, and to be fair, that can come up in a lot of these different areas as well. Many accountants will confess to being guilty of allowing scope creep to happen. And what I always recommend there is whenever you've had some kind of an agreement with a client, and you should always go through all of your services to some extent with, so that they're aware of what you can do. I know a lot of accountants tell me that they lost a client. When I asked them what happened, they said, well, the other accountant does X, Y, Z. And they said, well, we do that. And they said, well, I didn't know that you could do that. So it's always be mindful of telling them what you can do. But whenever you create your agreement with the client, I think it's just as important to say, so these are the things that you're having from us. But be mindful, these are the things you are not having from us. And even if that's a 2-page list, put that in there. That'll do 2 things. One, it lets them know that they're not getting these things. And it may be that they read through and say, how come I'm not getting that? How can I get that? How much is it for that? So it's a great cross-selling, upselling opportunity. But also it sets that expectation that if they want something else doing, you can bring them back to it and say, well, if you remember, that's not included. So therefore, we need to give you an extra work order fee for doing that.
Yeah.
So sorry, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, we'll cover a lot of that in engagement management. Personally, I think that the monthly fee model is perfect if you can apply it. We always want to increase our fees. We can do that by persuading clients of the value of the service they receive. But equally, you can improve your profit margins by increasing your efficiencies. And that's how Initor Global can help you. Just to run through some of the services we offer, from basically all end-to-end accounting processes, from bookkeeping to year-end accounts to tax filing, payroll, etc., etc. So think about your inputs as well in terms of increasing your profit margin. Not just the output, which is geared around the price. So there are opportunities there to increase your margin. So I know we're running out of time, which is good in some ways because we've covered a lot. But alongside your pricing, your engagement management is equally important. So in this part of the presentation and webinar, we will cover the tricky subject of effective, engagement management. Once an engagement letter is issued and a fee agreed, many accountants feel the hard part of their job is done. That their client engagement is complete and they crack on with the detailed work. This is when some of your problems can start happening. And it can often be difficult to take stock of the progress of an engagement and whether any of the assumptions you made when you set your price and the scope of service to be provided have changed significantly. And I think we know that many accountants avoid those difficult conversations with their clients about increasing fees or even disengaging clients. And some of us are guilty, frankly, of carrying on with loss-making clients, which may not be a good fit with their practice. So there's a lot to get through in terms of managing engagements effectively. What we'll cover is issuing an engagement letter, the basics, keeping that engagement under review, the naughty issue of scope creep, how to have those tricky conversations about additional fees, what to do if there is a client dispute and you have to manage liabilities, disengagement letters, and how Initor can help you manage your engagements effectively. So for a new client relationship or extending work for an existing client, a letter of engagement must set out the terms of service. You must be clear about the scope of work and the fee must be prepared in advance, unless you're using some of the contingent fee approaches we discussed. Ongoing review of an engagement is an opportunity to revisit those fees, for you to examine how effectively services are being delivered and how to offer more services as a client relationship develops. So stop now for an audience poll, and just if you wouldn't mind giving your feedback on how often you do review your terms of engagement with clients, more than once a year, annually, or infrequently. It'd be good to hear from you at this time. And Cheyne, if you don't mind setting the scene from your side around engagement management, some of the things that you've seen from your members would be really helpful. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose I did touch on this as well, didn't I? So making sure that at the very least it's done once a year. And one of the things that we encourage accountants to do is actually grade their clients. Grade them in terms of, A, B, C, D. A's being your best clients for a number of factors that you would include in that criteria. Not least, are they profitable? Are they nice to work with? Are they having the types of services that you enjoy delivering? Right through to your D clients being the ones that either aren't profitable, you hate working with them, etc. And then those A clients, you can speak to them. Some of our member firms will speak to them maybe fortnightly or even monthly. Just to find out how they're doing. It's not just a case of how's the dog,
but how's business? What's happening there? Tell me what's. I'm really taking that genuine interest on a regular basis, and that really allows for that relationship to improve, of course, but also lots of opportunities for doing more and more things for that client. So, in other words, it's continually changing, and it's not just as infrequent as can be the case in many situations.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you have the wrong type of client, it's usually the accountant's fault, and not taking quick action to move those clients on, can be difficult, but it needs to be done. Mimi, what's the outcome of the poll?
Well, Robert, answer C has 82%, so infrequently.
That's interesting. So I'll run through the rest of the presentation and maybe make some suggestions about how you can do that smarter. Of course, we start with issuing an engagement letter. The basics around this. Please ensure you're qualified to provide the services required. If you're in doubt, contact your professional body for advice. And I'm thinking here about, if a client requires some audit or specialist tax work, just make sure you are actually qualified to provide that work. Prepare the letter setting out the engagement scope and contractual requirements of each party. Remember, this is a contract. It needs to be issued and signed by both parties, ideally before the work commences. You cannot backdate an engagement letter, so don't think that's a possibility. It also provides an opportunity for both parties to acknowledge their contractual responsibilities, and it also allows you to provide information to allow clients to make a formal complaint to a professional body in the event a dispute can't be resolved. So some basic tips there. In terms of keeping the engagement under review, needs to be systematic and underpinned by evidence from your time recording systems, costs, client communications, and understanding the client and their future needs. So there are times when an engagement needs to change and you need to have the evidence to support that. You may need a more regular review of an engagement terms where clients are higher risk or involve the provision of more complex services, and the grading of your clients that Cheyne mentioned can really help in terms of those regular reviews and when an engagement needs to change. And also use clear, unambiguous language when communicating with your client about an engagement and any terms you're concerned about. So don't sort of hide behind technical jargon. Tell them how it is. That they're just not fulfilling their part of the engagement, and there needs to be additional costs if necessary, or even a moving on of the client. Issue a new engagement letter or an extension specifying any permanent change in the scope of an engagement or its fees. And also throughout an engagement, seek opportunities to gain efficiencies, improve turnaround times by outsourcing recurring tasks, such as bookkeeping, VAT return, and the preparation of annual accounts. This will free up your time to have those conversations with clients about the engagement's progress. So there is scope to create capacity for yourself using outsourcing. And while an increase in fees may be unwelcome, in my experience, clients are usually persuaded by the value of the additional work that you've provided. So don't be shy about those additional sort of fees that you want to discuss. Provide the evidence to justify it, and you'll certainly find that most clients will cooperate with your suggestions. So we've mentioned scope creep, throughout the sort of pricing presentation, and it's also manifest when you're monitoring the progress of an engagement. A scenario you might find yourself facing: multiple questions and requests for a callback from a client. Be really clear. Is your client seeking information, progress of the work, or is he seeking advice? Is that issue outside the scope of the engagement? For instance, if you're engaged to provide services to a limited company, do you find yourself providing personal tax advice? Very straightforward scenarios like that you need to deal with. Does your response need to be confirmed in writing? So is it slowly becoming advice? And who is the advice for? Is it the company or the individual? And is the request open to an additional fee per your engagement letter clauses? And that's really important that you have scope to, you know, agree additional fees that is based in the engagement letter itself. And also, many engagements now require the client to provide information to you by a certain date and in a certain format. What do you do if that information is incorrect, late, or incomplete? Does it create a backlog of work for you and additional work pressures to complete? Will it have an impact on your workload for other clients? And who's responsible for correcting those errors? And is there scope for those additional fees in the engagement letter? And I think that this is probably something that does resonate with your members, Cheyne. You know, how do they tackle this often problematic issue of scope creep and bringing the client back to the engagement terms?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. I mean, if it's information, one of the responses I often tell people to use, if you like, it's a script, is just, so look, you know, it's a really great question. If they are looking for advice, it's a really great question. It's obviously not something I can answer just like that because it requires a bit of investigation, etc. For me to go away and do that, that'll be X amount of money. Are you happy for me to go ahead with that? And it really just sets that expectation that, number one, they've asked a great question, and two, that they shouldn't expect a drop of the hat reply.
Yeah.
So just a little tip there, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right, because, you know, often these issues will need to be researched. You know, the client should see the value of the research that an accountant has carried out.
Well, even if it doesn't need to be researched, if the accountant's got that answer in their head, it's probably because they did that research for somebody else and probably charged them for that in the past. So why should this client get the benefit of that? Do you know what I mean? So this is where the value comes in, because you've done that. Your value is in your X amount of years of experience. So, you know, for me, you should set that expectation. Otherwise, they literally won't value the answer anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And then that takes you on to the additional fee discussion. And you can always have clauses in your engagement letter, allows ad hoc fees for additional work or advice. That those are usually by hour or by negotiation. But you may need to agree new terms. You know, if it's a significant change or a material change to the scope of engagement and the fees that are applicable to it, should always be confirmed in writing that the ad hoc clause has been triggered. Mention where the clause is in the engagement letter and the additional fees to be billed and when they will be billed. And any ad hoc advice must have the usual appropriate caveats that the advice is limited in scope by the information that you have from your client and the scope of reliance that others can place on that work. So very, sort of simple steps you can take to make sure that any additional fees are properly dealt with. If we move on now to any client disputes and how you manage liabilities throughout these often quite traumatic events, engagement letters should always state the amount of liability that an accountant is prepared to suffer in the event of a dispute. That amount should be based on an assessment of risk for each type of client and the business, the nature of the assignment, and the risk of losses arising. It's really not good practice to have a single level of liability, regardless of the type of engagement or client involved. This needs, some serious consideration when you're entering into any engagement. The fee multiple basis, some of you may think that's very simple to implement. It's very rarely appropriate, especially for work like tax returns or self-assessment work. If you charge £80 for a self-assessment tax return, the fee multiple of that is not going to be appropriate in the event there are losses. And you should never state your level of PI cover. Only disclose that to a client with the permission of your insurer. And of course, the sort of final, stop that this train has is the disengagement. Sometimes disengagements can be amicable, and it's important to recognise that. But what the disengagement letter does is it sets out clearly the responsibilities to complete outstanding tasks, enable a smooth exit strategy for your client, and the continuing operation of the client's business. Disengagement should never be a barrier to your client continuing to operate. If it's amicable, take the opportunity to seek feedback and future referrals. If it's not amicable, then please learn the lessons for future engagements about why this engagement went wrong. Your letter will also confirm any outstanding work to be completed on statutory accounts or tax returns that need to be filed. This is important because it's a matter of record about the work you will do and the work you won't do. And it will confirm that you're no longer the agent for the client, and they will need to make arrangements for filing information with other regulators going forwards. You may need to refer to the disengagement letter if there are any issues in there that the client, if the client requires professional clearance to another accountant. So just to be aware that your disengagement letter may be seen by other parties. So really just to summarise where we can help, at Initor Global, we can help you reduce your business risk and operating costs, help you improve efficiency, create capacity, improve client satisfaction, and ensure your data integrity and protection through all our work. And we can help you drive up your quality standards. So I think it's time to sort of bring in, for a final time, Nick, if there are any questions, and Cheyne, if you wanted to sort of round off any comments around either pricing or engagement management, as we seem to have run out of time.
No observations for me and no questions from our audience. So please, Cheyne, any final comments?
Yeah, I'd kind of plan to run through a little bit of something. I suppose if it's okay with you guys and the audience, are you okay for another 5 minutes? Just give us a yes or no in the chat box. If you're all right for another 5 minutes, I'll very quickly run through something, which is, I think, maybe just a different angle on what we've heard already, but it's just my take on it. So give us a yes or no. Okay. Well, look, I'll tell you what. Why don't I? Are you okay with that, Nick, as well? All right. Well, let me. I'll raise my desk up. I'll bring in my whiteboard. If you're okay, just to stop the slide share for a moment, just so that I suppose this can be seen a little bit better, then that'll be great. Perfect. Okay, everything went black for me now. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see anybody, including myself, anymore.
Yes, we can see you.
Yeah, I can see you now, Cheyne.
Okay, right. Well, I've
May
no idea.
May I suggest that Robert and Nick turn off their cameras so you can take over the entire screen? There we go.
I'm just going to turn mine off for a moment and see if it comes back on for me. If not, then no, never mind. It's just that I can make sure that you're... Can you see me anymore? Oh, what's happening? I'll tell you what, we may have to
disappeared.
Yeah, we may have to do it to be continued. Maybe I've had to build up some anticipation and now I can't get out. Tell you what, something's gone wrong, so I'll tell you what, I will have to leave that for now. Maybe it's worth us doing maybe a to be continued webinar or something like that for you guys, and I'll do a little bit more. But everything just went pear-shaped for me. I'm sorry. So
no worries.
I'll leave it to you then to wrap up now, Nick. Apologies.
Yeah. It's, the joys of live TV don't work with children, animals, and accountants.
No problem. Thank you so much, Cheyne. You got me in tenterhooks here.
So I'll just finish off here and then let you close next. Okay. So just Initor, you can have a free, no obligation trial of our services, up to 10 hours from our team, depending on the service you need. We can assure you a 10% discount your first year of contract. We provide services on an ad hoc basis, half-time equivalent, full-time equivalent, whatever you need. And you'll have a named relationship manager as your key point of contact. So, yeah, I thought I'd shoehorn that in before I hand over to you, Nick, to do the thank yous. Just a reminder of my contact details.
No, I think, Robert, you make a great point. Look, if you're struggling to actually increase your fees for your clients, maybe how you resource those services could be a different way of thinking how you can boost your profitability. So maybe, as Robert said, leveraging outsourcing to reduce your costs could actually mean maybe don't have to discuss price increase for another year. So no, I think that's a very important shoehorn, Robert. No, I was just going to say thank you, Robert, for that presentation. Thank you, Cheyne, for joining us. It's been really insightful. Robert, we've had quite a few people asking about whether you're going to share the slides afterwards. So I think you're going to be sending some follow-up emails to the attendees anyway, right?
Yeah, definitely. We'll have a link to the webinar, and we can send slides to individuals if they want to drop us a line. Happy to do that. The webinar will be on our website probably tomorrow. So yeah, you can find it there.
Brilliant. Look, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you again, Robert. Thank you, Cheyne. I think we have set ourselves up for a sequel anyway. So watch this space, everyone. And thank you all for joining. Have a lovely day. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.